There isn't just one future that you're moving toward. There are multiple versions of it, already forming around your attention. And some of them don't feel like imagination. They feel like you're remembering something forward. The problem is most people don't know how to tell the difference between imagination and perception. And once you can tell that difference, everything else changes. Before I get into this, I want to be clear about who this is for. This isn't for people trying to force perception or manufacture experiences that aren't already naturally showing up. This is for people who are already noticing something happening internally, like subtle impressions, outcome-based feelings, shifts in direction, or internal knowings that don't feel like normal feelings. They're not fantasy, they're not storytelling, not imagination spirals. There's something else. And if that's you, this is about refining it, so you stop second-guessing it or dismissing it or letting it slip past you unprocessed. Now, the first thing we need to separate is this. Not everything internal is the same mechanism. Imagination is something you actively build. It shifts, it changes, it follows your input, and you can steer it, reshape it, expand it, and collapse it. It has a constructed feel to it, even when it's vivid. You are participating in it moment to moment. And what we're talking about here doesn't behave like that. It feels more like receiving than building, and it arrives more than it's forced. It has a stable, consistent feel, and it doesn't require you to keep constructing it. And it feels like it exists whether you engage with it or not. Sometimes it even feels like it's sitting slightly outside your direct awareness, like it's already there in the background of perception. And when you tune into it, you're not creating it. You're sinking it into something already formed. And once that distinction is clear, the next layer makes sense. So there isn't just one good timeline and one bad timeline. There are multiple directions, multiple outcome states, and multiple layers of possibilities. Different densities and different expressions and different levels of alignment. And here's the key point. The ones that consistently show up for you are not random. They are the ones your awareness is already capable of detecting based on where you currently are. Now, the highest timeline you perceive isn't something that you're inventing. It behaves more like a version of you that already exists further along your own alignment. And it doesn't feel distant the way people assume. It feels familiar, almost recognizable, like something in you is remembering it. And it doesn't just appear as an idea. It feels like it's aware of you, almost like your future self isn't waiting passively, but actively noticing you right now. Like it's kind of signaling back through perception, this way, come here. It's not forcing you, and it's not demanding you, and it doesn't feel like possession. It's just pulling attention forward through recognition. It's not trying to override you, and it's not controlling you. It's highlighting a direction that already exists as a coherent version of you. So now, here's where people usually get confused. When you return to a timeline you previously perceived, it doesn't always feel the same. It might feel less vivid, less emotionally intense, or slightly different in structure. And the immediate assumption is, I made it up, or it wasn't real. But that's not what's happening. Those shifts are feedback. They reflect your current internal position, not timeline changing, but your alignment changing. So what you perceive is always filtered through your mindset and your emotional state and your attention patterns and your behavioral direction. So when something shifts, you're not seeing a different timeline, you're seeing yourself from a different state inside of it. So instead of thinking it's real versus not real, it becomes a spectrum of alignment. Higher alignment timelines feel clearer, they're more coherent, and they're more stable, and they often carry a sense of direction, like, this is where I'm supposed to be moving. Now, the mid-alignment timelines reflect where you are currently trending. Based on your habits, your emotional patterns, and your attention flow, they're mirrors. They're not warnings, they're just reflections. Now, those lower alignment timelines feel less coherent, and they're more fragmented, and they're heavier in tone sometimes, not because they're always bad, but because they reflect continuation without adjustment. And none of those are moral categories, by the way. They are directional maps. And here's something important to notice as we go deeper into this. You can only really perceive a timeline clearly when there's still some distance between you and it. It's when you're still observing it, still comparing it, and still interpreting it from the outside. Because the moment you fully align with something, you stop experiencing it as a separate thing to look at, and it becomes the environment that you're moving inside of. which means part of this work is not just learning how to see the timelines, it's learning how to recognize where you already are in relation to them. And that changes everything about how you use perception. So now here's the part that makes this usable. When you engage with the timeline, don't manipulate it and don't force it into a shape that you expect. Just observe it. Let it unfold naturally. Notice what is already there and not what you want it to be. And this is where you want to get more precise with what you are actually observing. Pay attention to your emotional state inside the timeline and not just what's happening. But how do you feel while it's happening? Is it stable or does it fluctuate? Does it feel natural or slightly forced? Or does it feel like something that you're trying to maintain or something that holds itself without effort? Because emotional tone is the clearest indicators of alignment. And here's another thing to notice is the way interactions unfold, especially dialogue. When something is more imagination-based, you tend to anticipate what's going to be said, like you're slightly ahead of it or directing it without realizing. But when you're perceiving something, there's often a subtle element of unpredictability. You're present with it. You're not fully in control of it. Sometimes the response, the reaction, or the direction of a conversation lands in a way that you didn't pre-plan. And it's not random. And it's not authored step by step either. And that's the difference that matters because it tells whether you were constructing or receiving. So don't just look at what's happening. Pay attention to how much control that you feel that you have over it and how much of it feels like that it's unfolding on its own. And now you journal this. And when you do so, don't just write down what you saw. Write the state you were in when you saw it. And then write the emotional tone, write the level of stability that the vision had or whether it felt consistent or fragile. And write whether the experience felt like it held itself or needed your effort to continue. And if there was interaction, note whether you anticipated it or whether parts of it genuinely surprised you. Because over time, these patterns are going to start to separate very clearly. You begin to see the difference between what you're generating and what you're actually tuning into. And that's where your accuracy sharpens. And it's not by forcing clearer visions, but by recognizing the mechanics behind what you're already experiencing. And when you revisit it, pay attention to what has changed. Again, clarity, emotional tone, and structure and stability. And even the subtle differences matter because those shifts are information. And again, you write it down, but not as a story, but as a record and a pattern log. Then compare intentionally, engage the higher alignment version, and then the lower alignment version, and then ask yourself, what version of me exists in each one, and what am I doing differently in each state? What am I thinking differently? What feels natural and what feels unnatural in the other? And then comes the key point, and this is not about prediction, this is about alignment. If the higher timeline feels clear, the question becomes, what do I need to do to adjust myself right now to stabilize in this direction? And if a lower timeline becomes more active, the question becomes, what current pattern in me is generating this drift? Because over time, what you repeatedly engage with becomes what you naturally align toward. So you're not choosing between fixed futures. You're adjusting alignment inside of a living field of possibilities. And that version feels like your highest path. Isn't something far away that you're chasing. It's something already coherent, already stable, already existing. And it's not silent. It keeps showing up in perception, not as pressure, but as recognition. It's like a version of you already standing in clarity, turning back slightly, signaling, yep, you're still on your way here. It's never as force. It's always as an invitation. And over time, you stop trying to track it. You stop trying to hold it at a distance. You stop trying to interpret it like something outside of you. Because once you've actually already aligned with the direction, you're not observing it anymore because you're inside of it. You're not looking at the timeline, but you're moving through it, living it and becoming it in real time. So there's nothing left to decode in the same way because what you're trying to understand is now what you're experiencing directly. And that's the shift most people miss. They keep searching for the signal inside something that they've already stepped into. But once you're there, there's no signal to chase, no separation to analyze, just a path you're already walking. And then it goes quiet. Not because something ended, but because there's no longer enough distance to describe it from the outside. You're just there. That's all I got. See you guys next time.